Kick was down the middle and good! 49ers win it! San Francisco is moving on with a 13-10 win here at Lambeau.
And here we are again. I don't know why it always starts me on that right side when I end up moving it over to the left. Club Dub Podcast, Packers lose. Man, I had to throw that in there for the intro. That was awesome. Great weekend of NFL football. Bears have a new general manager. A lot to talk about here on the show. Welcome into the Club Dub Podcast, everybody. We're presented by sportsmockery.com, going across the ticker on the bottom of the screen there. And like Eric said, we have a ton to talk about tonight. Welcome to Halas Hall, Ryan Pace. Polls. Got another Ryan P. They don't even need to replace the name tag. Guys, initial reactions. How's everybody doing? We excited about this news? I'm pretty fired up about it.
Absolutely. I mean, the more you read about the guy, the more you like the way he sounds. He's considered a leader of men. He's obviously young. He's smart. He's organized. He's detailed. And, I think most importantly, he's sort of a hybrid type of GM in that he's old school scouting, but also he embraces analytics, which has been a problem for the Bears apparently over the past several years. They only have one analytics person, and this is a part of the game that they really should probably embrace in order to help themselves, find better talent. So he sounds like exactly the kind of guy that McCaskies would like, but also the kind of guy that the Bears probably need to sort of lead this thing forward.
Yeah, I mean, everything that we have read so far, I mean, it's actually pretty interesting how quickly Ryan Poles' name kind of became a thing in this hiring cycle. I think it started with it may have been with New York and then the Vikings.
I was going to say, I said on last week's show, he was a giant shoo-in, I thought,
Yeah, that's what it seemed like. And all of a sudden, he leaves the building. The Bears happen to get the second interview scheduled first. And all of a sudden, boom. I mean, Jeff Hughes of the Bears blog, spot on with his sources lately. And I don't think anyone can really doubt that. But, I mean, he was saying, like, they had a committee of 5 in the interviews, like we know about. We have the three, stooges, so to speak, of Bill Polian, Ted Phillips, and George McCaskey. And then the 2 other folks they have Soup Campbell and Tanisha Wade, I believe it is.
Yeah, I think that's how you pronounce it.
Tanisha Wade. And all 5 of them had Ryan Poles as their number 1 candidate. That is amazing. I mean, like that's true consensus. And I mean, they brought him in, and from everything that we've seen, like Eric talked about, really good scouting. I mean, you look at some of the players they've drafted in Kansas City. He has, just remarkable, clearly. And the influence that he has, he's learned in a few different spots and different influences. And that's something the Bears didn't have with Ryan Pace. So a very much more expansive resume at a younger age than what Pace was when he was hired. So very exciting stuff.
And that scares you a little bit. The resumes are very similar to Ryan Pace, and I've heard that argument brought up a lot. But the thing that sticks out to me right away before we look at, he's won Super Bowls and he's drafted a lot of guys that are obviously proving to be talented on that Kansas City roster, is he's survived multiple regimes and multiple general managers that have gone on, who are still in the playoffs today, who have gone on to do really great things and brought their teams to Super Bowls and playoff wins and everything else under the sun. And that shows you that they have faith in him, so they know what he's doing. I, for one, I'm a little concerned that they're going with somebody new here. It could pay dividends, or we could be right back to where we started. And I'm happy that he's going to be able to choose his own head coach, though. We heard that today, that he will be able to handpick his head coach. So it's not a John Fox, Ryan Pace thing. I know Bears fans are like, oh, here we're circling the wagons again. But it's not going to be that. He's actually going to have a chance to choose the guy he works best with. And he's got connections to Brian Flores. He's got connections to Caldwell, who was in the building today. He's got connections to Daboll. He's got connections to Quinn. He's going to pick the guy that works best for him, and we'll have some actual collaboration around here. And it won't be a force-fed situation that will turn toxic quickly.
Yeah, and for what we've seen from reports, I mean, Poles wouldn't have accepted the role had he not been given that autonomy to lead the head coaching search himself. It's like, hey, George, Bill, whatever, thank you for taking it as far as you did. Now it's my shot. And good for him. Negotiate that piece, get that power, well deserved, and go get the head coach. Now, it sounds like right now the three finalists that have been kind of making the waves on Twitter are Jim Caldwell, Matt Eberflus, and Dan Quinn.
Yeah, and you hate all of them.
I am not a fan of any of them, but that's neither here nor there. I am hoping that he does.
No, I want you to explain why. We got to get into that.
Right now?
Yeah, get into that. Well, yeah,
Okay.
give me like a 30-second bit on each one, because I don't think there's anything wrong with Dan Quinn.
Conservative, man. As a head coach,
Okay.
he was conservative. I have been very vocal about wanting an offensive-minded head coach. First of all, like that is my dream. I've talked about it. I've talked about why repeatedly on previous podcasts. I'm happy to rehash it here again if you'd like. But that has been my goal. But that's not why I don't like Dan Quinn or Matt Eberflus. It's just, but that's my goal. Now, okay. Now you may say, okay, Drew, Jim Caldwell, offensive coordinator or offensive-minded head coach. Never was a very good offensive coordinator, had prime Peyton Manning and prime Matthew Stafford during his successful seasons. And they did a lot of, masking of some of the schematic issues that he had. Now he has been out of a prominent role since 2017, out of an actual coaching role since 2019. He was very conservative as a head coach as well, which I hate, about head coaches when they're conservative, especially when they shouldn't be. And look, he is, at an age where if
be the third go around for
the guy, yeah, I mean, if Justin Fields is the guy, how much coaching does Jim Caldwell really have left? And if Justin Fields is the guy, you don't want to interrupt his exponential growth. Hopefully, in year 3 of possibly 15. Right?
You'd be betting on the Bears to hire a really good offensive coordinator when we haven't really been able to get a head coach or GM right.
And
so that only increases your odds of getting it wrong. Right.
That coordinator would be, someone who would be then a prime, candidate for some other head coaching job in the future. And that's one of the reasons, though, I would like that person to be locked in from an offensive perspective. Again, yes, are there examples where offensive coordinators or defensive coaches, special team coaches have been good head coaches? Sure, absolutely. But highest ceiling probability for a team like the Bears, when you're talking about new era of coaching and new era of things to consider, analytics, etc. That's what I would like. So all this long story short is I am hoping the Bears do expand their head coaching list beyond these 3 finalists.
Got a lot of people vouching for Brian Daboll in the comments. I know that
for
was
obvious reasons.
Yeah, I mean, we all watched that playoff game. He was fantastic. He's developed a very great quarterback in the NFL. I think what we can go over, we're going to talk about those games later, but that was the best football game I've ever seen. I've watched a lot of football in my day. You guys more so than me probably, but I've never seen a game that great. It literally looks like the Bears are playing a different sport than what we saw against Bills and Chiefs. So, right, that's an offense you want. Justin's a physical quarterback. He's a running quarterback. He's a quarterback with a strong arm. He's got a lot of the traits Josh Allen has. But I don't know. I worry about trusting the Bears and going brand new at both positions. I think now that they have a new guy at a new position, I'm totally okay with them going out and getting someone who's had experience. I'm totally cool with it. I would have no problem with Dan Quinn. Jim Caldwell worries me a bit because you're right. He's old. And then if things are going well, things are going really well, you don't want to throw a knife into it. And then all of a sudden you got to go out and find somebody else. And you got to find an offensive coordinator or promote your offensive coordinator. If your offensive coordinator sucks, you got to go out and hire another guy, and it flips everything under a bush. So I'm with you on the Caldwell thing, but not so much on Dan Quinn. I mean, he's been to a Super Bowl. He's coached on successful teams. I think if he were to become the head coach, he's not the tastiest candidate out there. I'm a Brian Flores guy, but I wouldn't hate it. Eric, I mean, what's your reaction to this?
Well, I addressed this on Twitter. Of the 3 that are considered finalists right now, I like Dan Quinn the best because he showed that he can have success with a team as a head coach, as he did in Atlanta. He came so close to winning the Super Bowl in 2016. They were good again in 2017. Unfortunately, some bad drafting, moving towards the end of his tenure really sort of did him in, but he proved that he can, keep a good staff around Matt Ryan, who had probably his 2 best seasons under Dan Quinn in those years. One was with Kyle Shanahan and one was without, in case some of you are going to say that Kyle Shanahan was the only reason for that. But He's only 51. He learned a lot of lessons in Atlanta that he's probably going to apply to this new opportunity, whichever job he does end up getting, which I think he will, be it the Giants, the Bears, or the Broncos. I think it's going to be one of those three. So he's my preferred candidate. Eberflus, I like a lot of the things I've heard about him. He's got that Rod Marinelli mentality, high accountability of his players, always consistent in his coaching style, always focused on the process. That's all great. But I worry about his connections around the league in terms of building an offensive staff. He's not really well connected at the NFL level. He worked in Dallas and he's worked in Indianapolis. That's pretty much it. So his connections aren't exactly, far reaching. And then as Caldwell, if it were 7 years earlier, I'd be all for Jim Caldwell. He's 67, and in the next couple of years, he's going to be 70. And time, and as you've seen in this league, it eats at you really hard, especially in a city like Chicago, and especially for a position like head coach. And you worry that how much juice does he actually have left at that age? Even if he has improved his diet and, improved his health since what happened in 2019. So that's why I'm very skeptical of Jim Caldwell. I just don't know if he has the edge and the energy that he used to back in Indianapolis and back in Detroit. So if it has to be one of those three, I would go with Dan Quinn just because I think he's best prepared for it. I think he would pair well with Poles because they have a relationship of some kind. But if they don't make a decision tomorrow when both Eberflus and Quinn interview, I'm going to take that as a sign that they're probably going to expand the list and see if they can meet a couple of other guys before making a final decision.
I was going to say, so this week, if you're just joining us, welcome to the Club Dub podcast, by the way. We got a lot of people tuning in, a lot of people who love Brian Daboll. Who couldn't after that game? We're talking about big day at Halas. The Bears have a new general manager. His name is Ryan Poles. No, not Ryan Pace. I already made that joke many times, as a lot of people have on Twitter. Not going to be the last time I make it.
No,
Bears have a new general manager, and he's got really good connections at the age of 36. He's a former Bears draft pick. He knocked it out of the park in his interview. We saw George McCaskey go pick him up from O'Hare. In Chicago, we don't say "I love you." We say "How I'll go pick you up from O'Hare." That's kind of what we do here. And this is an exciting day. But now the next question is, who is going to be head coach? I'm a Brian Flores guy. I would put all the money I have in the world on it being one of those four guys that we listed right there. Yes, I know people are, what about Sean Payton? Guys, he retired and he said he's not coaching next year. He'll probably come back and coach. So if the Bears want to do a stopgap guy, maybe, but not with a rookie quarterback. So I don't see that them wasting another year of Fields with a stopgap quarterback. As much as, we could love to pry Sean Payton away, it's going to cost you some draft picks, and it's likely not going to happen. Jim Harbaugh, not going to happen either. We would have heard more about this if it was a thing. So it's going to be Flores, it's going to be Caldwell, Daboll, or Dan Quinn. It's going to be one of these four. So I'm a Flores guy through and through. I've talked about it, and I think that he got a raw deal in Miami. Didn't get along with the GM, and that was their biggest. He gets along with, Poles. I mean, they have a working relationship together. They played together, so this is a good sign. But I just can't help but think that maybe this, we're never going to know. We're never going to know if this is the right hire until we start seeing some things on the field. The good thing is, my favorite thing about Ryan Poles is the Chiefs have a very strong front office. Obviously, we know they have multiple guys in scouting and executive positions, way more than the Bears do. Bears have one guy. Chiefs have like 4 or 5. But the one thing I do like about this is he's involved in the decision to continuously throw assets at Patrick Mahomes, your franchise quarterback. Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce weren't enough. Let's go out and draft Mecole Hardman. Let's take a flyer on Byron Pringle. Let's go draft a really good running back with our 31st overall pick or 32nd overall pick and Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Let's go out and get Jerick McKinnon. Let's take a flyer on Josh Gordon. I mean, there was
I think you're actually overlooking his biggest strength, which is the offensive line. I mean,
Joe Thuney. Yeah, exactly.
Not just that, but the 2 rookies they drafted this year, Creed Humphrey and Trey Smith, they've been outstanding for the Chiefs this year. And apparently Poles, according to a report that was written a while back, he was a big advocate of Creed Humphrey. He compared him to, Ben Jones, a longstanding center who's had a lot of success in the league. He was a big advocate. They drafted him, and now he's their starting center, and he's been outstanding. So he has if you look at the Chiefs draft record since he sort of became a prominent member of the front office, they've drafted really well on the offensive line. So that's very important as you're starting the process of building around Justin.
Yeah, I'm fully in agreement. And guess who's a free agent this year? And I threw this in our chat earlier after
Michael
watching the
Hardman.
Chiefs. Hardman's a free agent this year. He's great.
Yeah.
Like this is a guy you can integrate into your offense, and you're right. The offensive line, Bears need a center. That's my number 2 position of need in going into this offseason behind wide receiver.
Yeah.
I just think that on offense, they got it right with it's just never going to be enough. This isn't going to be a Green Bay Packers offense where let's just be satisfied with a couple guys that we got. That's not going to fly under this guy, and I really like that. It's going to be an emphasis on the offensive side of the ball. I could be wrong on that, but I don't think I'm going to be. I think that that's going to be the mindset moving forward, and that should make a lot of us excited. So again, welcome to Halas Hall, Ryan Poles. He released this statement earlier, just a few moments ago. I'm extremely grateful to George McCaskey family and the rest of the Bears organization for this opportunity. The Chicago Bears are one of the flagship franchises in the National Football League and are recognized as one of the most prestigious clubs in all of sports. It's an honor for me to join such a well-regarded organization. Together with my family, I'm looking forward to hitting the ground running, helping this organization, its fan base in the city, get what they deserve, winning a Super Bowl or a winning team and a Super Bowl trophy. So good statement there. The only thing I would have changed, we are the flagship. But other than that, love the statement. Love that. Love the, we want to see a Super Bowl. And, he's got one of those.
He set the tone right from the first statement. Super Bowl, man. That's the expectation. That's the way it should be done.
He's about to have 2 of them. He's going to hopefully get another one this year. I mean, the Chiefs are damn good. So, all right. So initial reactions. We love it or hate it. Or are we somewhere in the middle on it?
I like it. Love it. Probably not, but I like the hire. From everything I've heard, I think he's a good choice. Everybody around the league likes him. He's seen as a rapidly ascending guy. Is he ready yet? You can make the argument one way or the other, but the fact that he's worked under 3 different GMs with 3 very different team building philosophies. You got the Patriots style with Pioli, you got the Packers style with Dorsey, and then you've got Veach with the Eagles style. Those are very different philosophies on how to build a team, and I think that's a great education, even though he hasn't worked for other organizations. So I think that's working in his favor. He's obviously intelligent. Being young, you can make the argument that he might not be ready yet, but he clearly was prepared to make his case for what he can do for this organization. So I'm excited to see what he can do.
Yeah, same here. I'm right there with you, Eric. I'm a fan of the hiring from a football standpoint, from just the fact that the Bears did learn a lesson, I think, from their process. I think the process was quite sound in getting to this conclusion. By everything that we've read and heard, polls, and it seems to be unanimously loved on Twitter, former players, people that worked with him, around the league, analysts, they all
Field Yates has been
fanboying
out.
Yeah,
they played together, didn't they? Or no, they were scouts together in the Chiefs organization. I think
something like that.
I think that's what their connection
Yates
was.
actually singled him out in 2017 as somebody to watch, and sure enough.
Yeah, and it's like the unanimous love is quite incredible. I mean, this is clearly he was a finalist for the Vikings job, for the Giants job, and like I said at the beginning, his name came kind of from nowhere in terms of like hot names in this cycle, right?
Everyone was a finalist last year for the Panthers job too, so he's been close a number of times, and the fact that the Bears were the ones who ended up pulling the trigger was pretty interesting.
Which is for sure. And so like I'm a fan. I'm going to be even more of a fan if he expands his head coaching.
I think he will. I don't think we're going to have to worry about that. I think he will expand it, but it could very well be. I don't think it's going to be Jim Caldwell. I'm going to go out and say it. I don't think it's going to be Jim Caldwell.
Probably not, but you never know. Maybe Napoleon really tries to make a push, but you just can't predict that sort of thing. But Brad Spielberger, who's actually had some decent connections to what's going on in Chicago right now for Pro Football Focus, said that he expects that the list will expand, and he seems pretty confident about it. So if, like I said, if we don't hear anything in terms of somebody's probably going to be hired by the end of tomorrow, then I would expect the list is going to expand, and they're going to look at some other guys.
And kind of a tangential benefit, the league came up with some rules to incentivize players to hire minorities in these positions of power. The Bears hiring polls, minority candidate. I think they do get a draft pick or 2.
It goes the other way, actually. The team that produced the candidate to get hired is the one who gets the draft picks. So
Okay.
basically, it's the Chiefs who are going to get 2, I believe, third-round picks,
thirds?
one
Yeah,
this year
so
and one
two-thirds.
next year. So it
Interesting.
incentivizes teams to bring up minority candidates in order for them to get hired. So it's actually a smart process, which is why Champ Kelly has come so close and the Bears have been high on him. If he had somehow got a job in the near future, the Bears would get those 2 third-round picks, which is why I believe that Poles will probably bring in a lot of minority candidates for his own staff, in the future. So that'll probably help the Bears out, especially if they're successful.
Makes sense.
Getting some comments rolling in here too. Paul, I love the hype here, but he wasn't the only guy who built this Chiefs team. Brett Veach obviously was. What is that avatar, Drew?
It's Betty White, man.
Betty
Come
White
on.
with a hot dog.
I did not choose that hair. Jeez. I was wondering what happened.
What was that?
Again. What the hell?
Oh, yes.
That's amazing.
Man, Drew's a Betty White guy, huh? All right.
Dude, I quite frankly, before she passed, I didn't really know who she was.
I wonder what mine is. Hang on, I'm gonna check. I'm gonna turn my camera off. I wonder if it's the same. Wait, why is it Betty White?
Okay.
We gotta ask the guys over at Pinwheels and Ivy if they've talked with that.
Awesome.
But Paul, I love the comment here. Excellent hire. He definitely had a hand in building the Chiefs, but I don't want Bears fans to be like, "Wow, he built the Chiefs, so we're gonna be just the same." It's not gonna be that. You got to get the quarterback right. If Fields is right, then it's going to be a different ballgame. But if he's not, it's not, and we can't. This isn't going to be a quick fix. I mean, he may have either inherited a great situation here, or one that's going to really test his future in this league. So I think we all have to just take a step back, and this draft is going to be huge. This free agent class. What have I been saying this whole time? Draft a wide receiver, sign a wide receiver, trade for a wide receiver. They got to do it all. And I'm excited to see how he goes about building this offense, because that's the biggest need.
And to Eric's point earlier, I mean, his approach to team building has been morphed by 3 main different perspectives. So the way he sees a vision for the Bears coming together may be entirely different than the way the Bears are currently constructed. Like, obviously, we know the Bears need help. They have holes on the roster they just need to fill because they exist. But he may say, look, guys, like, I know you're probably happy with, for argument's sake, like Larry Borum as your future right or left tackle. Nah, he's going to be our swing tackle. We're going to go get a starter for our offensive line. We're going to revamp the 3 interior linemen that we have. Sorry, James Daniels, you're done. Sorry, Sam Mustipher, you're done. Trading or cutting Cody. I mean, look, offensive line clearly a big priority for the Chiefs, which they did a pretty remarkable job of in the offseason revamping.
The way they rebuilt that front is just remarkable in one offseason.
It's amazing. So, I mean, a lot of the people that the Bears think are Bears fans think that are penciled in as coming back next year, he may be like, no, we want new players there. So it'll be very interesting to see what he believes is the way to get the Bears to what he envisions them to be. And so we may see a lot more moves that are more surprising because he's like, no, this is not a good fit for what I want to do. And I'm fascinated to see how that comes out.
I'm excited for it. I think we'll see a lot of what I like to call trimming the fat. Guys like, and this is no disrespect to these guys who've given a lot to this team over the years, but it's just frankly time to, under a time where you need to shift more offensively. I think it's going to be a time where you're going to need to move on from guys like Eddie Goldman. You're going to need to move on from a guy like Danny Trevathan. I'm cool with not re-signing James Daniels. I think he was our best lineman last year. But if he's going to want a big contract and you think you can solidify this in the draft, I'd say go for it. Also, I think we lost Drew, so I'm going to wait for him to get on back. But
he'll be back.
Listen, if you're right, you pointed out a really good point about this offensive line, and I just want an offensive side of the ball, and I think we're gonna get that. I think we're gonna get a guy who can just rebuild the line to where it needs to be. I think it'll get to a point where that has to be the hitting point. That had to have been the hitting point for McCaskey. We're going to go out and get a lot of offensive weapons and make this offense work like an NFL team. So,
well, that is the rumor that he's actually a big advocate for Justin Fields, which I'm sure was a really nice selling point from his point of view. I mean, when you look at Justin and Patrick Mahomes, their skill sets are similar. Obviously, they're not the same player yet because Mahomes is a superstar and Fields has a long way to go. But if you look at the skill sets and you look at the mentalities, they do share a lot of similarities. So you would understand why a guy like Poles would be really, interested in somebody like Fields and understanding how to build around somebody like Fields because he's already done it for Patrick. So the whole philosophy belief from Poles, according to, the rumors and reports, is he likes to build front to back, especially on the offensive side. Offensive line first, then work your way out, which is usually how you should do it because, protection is key, then worry about the weapons. And the way Justin was sacked so often last season is a big concern because he's already been injured twice in his rookie season. So you got to make sure he stays upright before anything else. And I think that's probably where Poles is going to focus first.
I think you're right. And that's what they need. Plain and simple. That's what they need. I want a guy who thinks it's never enough on offense. That's what this team has needed. If you're going to properly invest into a quarterback and not have garbage wide receivers and expecting, I just think back to that first year of Mitch in 2017 and thinking of that horrible offense that he had around him because he didn't have a GM that wanted to build around him. And I think that's got to be, if we're talking about collaboration, that has to be at the forefront. And I'm sure that's why he got the job and they didn't allow him to get back on the plane to Minnesota, in which he had a flight to go visit the Vikings tonight. He was in their final round. He was the Vikings clear candidate that they wanted as well. So now that's 2 for 2 for the Bears. Vikings wanted Justin Fields, didn't get him. They wanted Poles, didn't get him, and for that we say,
1 sec.
You got it?
Yeah, I got it. Did you hear that?
I love that video. One more time.
1 sec.
You got it?
Yeah, I got it. Did you hear that?
Amazing. That's
Oh, it's nice. And you know who else lost this weekend? I think I don't even need to say it. Oh man, initial reactions from the divisional round of the NFL. This was an unbelievable weekend of football. I sat on that couch on Sunday. I was really hungover, so I was sitting down and I did not move all day. I got to watch a Marquette win and I got to watch 2 incredible football games, man.
Mhm.
Holy cow, what a weekend of football. It was great. I love it.
It was great stuff. I mean, the Bengals getting to the AFC Championship wasn't all that surprising to me. I felt they were equipped to take down Tennessee because they had Joe Burrow. I think he was a clear advantage over Ryan Tannehill. And when you have the better quarterback, your odds are obviously really good. I don't think they're going to get to the Super Bowl this year. I don't think they're quite ready yet, but they're getting there. And Burrow, I think he's going to be a superstar in the AFC for a long time. He, Mahomes, and Josh Allen, man, that trio by themselves is going to be something to watch. The Packers game was absolutely stunning to me.
Wow.
I mean, you got Aaron Rodgers. I felt they were healthier than they'd ever been most of the season. And, I just didn't feel that the Niners defense could keep up they might keep it close for a while, but there's no way they're going to go 60 minutes holding down Aaron Rodgers, and they hold him to 10 points. And I'm just like, wow. If you talk about a team effort in terms of winning a football game, put on the tape of that game because the 49ers put on an absolute gem.
I don't know what happened to Aaron. I really don't. It was crazy. I've never seen him play
He
like
became
that.
more interested in his own personal, beefs than, winning football games. And that's been a criticism of him for a long time, self-absorbed and all that sort of stuff. Fantastic player, going to be in the Hall of Fame. We all know that, but something's missing. Something always seems to crop up come playoff time when it comes to him.
Yeah, the funniest thing that was trending on Twitter after that loss was, I think this was 2017 or 18 or 19 when I can't remember when Rodgers and the Packers had just lost the NFC title game, I believe it was.
To the Niners?
To the Niners.
Yeah, it was
in
NFC
Santa
title game
Clara.
in 2019. Yep.
Yeah, thank you. 2019 in Santa Clara. And Rodgers' postgame was said, we got to get one of these games at Lambeau. Cold, wind, 20-degree weather, all this makes a difference rather than playing here. And the 49ers go into Lambeau. And frankly, I mean, from a physical perspective, they kicked their ass. It was on. I absolutely love the identity of the San Francisco 49ers. And I'm a pass first guy. I mean, trust me, I'm a pass first guy. The passing game is where you win in the NFL, which we clearly saw a lot of this weekend. But man, Kyle Shanahan has built a team, and
John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan. You can say both of them.
They have built a tough. I mean, that is a team that will beat you up, and you will know that you've played the 49ers. They went into Lambeau and they did really well. It was an epic performance. Obviously, it was extra delicious that Robbie Gould was the one who won that game. Extra delicious, fantastic. And the rest of the games, man, I mean, just unbelievable. I don't think I've ever seen a weekend of football that great, and I don't think we ever will, because every single game ended on a final, on a scoring play, last play of the game, essentially. Extremely happy for Matthew Stafford. Bittersweet that Tom Brady's reign had to end that way, but it was so fitting that we saw a comeback that only Brady could pull off, in his final game, possibly.
His defense too, again, just tried to step up and really deliver him a win. I mean, that strip sack was great, or that fumble there at the end of the game was fantastic. I mean, it was
well-coached
awesome.
team, full of fighters, and they played like champs. Unfortunately, Stafford made two unbelievable throws, especially that last one to Cooper Kupp to, get him in field goal range, and that's what happens in the NFL, man. It's all you need is one big play.
Yep, it's a ruthless league. This is why we love it, though. It's so good.
100%. It's never boring.
Why isn't Cooper Kupp going to be the MVP this year? Is my question.
Because he's a receiver, plain and simple. It always goes to the quarterback. It's the most valuable quarterback award. It's not the most valuable player.
I realize that the quarterback's most important position in all of professional sports. I get it, but come on, man. Cooper Kupp deserves the MVP. I don't know.
I would not bat an eye in a second if they name Cooper Kupp the MVP, because he earned it. There's no doubt in my mind that he earned it. But
he should get it.
I in no way believe that he's going to be the MVP. It's going to be Aaron Rodgers, or it's going to be
it's going to be
Tom
Rodgers.
Brady.
It'll be Rodgers.
It has to be, but it has to be Brady.
Nah, it's going to be Rodgers.
It's probably going to be Rodgers, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's Brady, because
it will be Rodgers. I'm mad that it'll be Rodgers.
Yeah, because especially after he shit the bed, the way he did against the 49ers. So,
and guys, I swear, I was just watching the game, and one last plug for Brady. I was watching that game. It is 27-13. No, 27-13, and a 55-yard dime on the literally just dime in stride to Mike Evans, who toasted Jalen Ramsey, by the way.
That was delicious.
That was amazing. And just he's 44. He's 44.
The man defies logic. I think we've established this.
Yeah, we cover this, and then we're like, you're still in awe of it, because the guy is fucking 44.
He's unbelievable, and I think that the cool thing is he signed a 2-year deal with Bucks, right? So he's technically a free agent right now, right?
Brady is a free agent. Yeah, I believe he's officially going into free agency.
So, it really does sound like he's, for the first time, truly contemplating retirement. I mean, he's got the 7 rings. Nobody else is going to touch him probably ever. And his wife has really been on him about, walking away, because he's taking a lot more hits despite the great offensive line he's had in front of him. So at some point, you just got to know when it's time. And it feels like he's starting to reach that, which, considering he's made it this far, is just, absolutely insane.
Yeah, I think I don't know if we'll see a victory tour from him one last season. I don't think he's going to retire. I think he will play next year, just because of how fantastic he played. Why would he not want to play one more year? If he wants to go out and run it back with it, with a team, maybe less distractions. Because honestly, I think the Buccaneers ran into a tough time of year, and they had a lot of distractions off the field from a guy who meant a lot to their offense, and
a lot of injuries too.
Yeah, I mean, they didn't have their left tackle in this game, so I mean, it was,
I thought it was their right tackle. Was it their right tackle?
Oh yeah, sorry, yeah, he's their right tackle. What's his name?
Wirfs. Yeah, I think it was a high ankle sprain. I think that was it. Or did he get surgery on that? I think he had surgery on that. Wow. And he tried to play through it. Jeez.
I mean, just injuries on injuries, and they got a proper team, and I don't know what their salary cap thing looks like. I'm sure it's looking a lot like Green Bay's, but I think we'll see him come back. Now Rodgers is a different story here. We heard him talk. I'm going to play you the clip, but we heard him talk about, I don't want to be a part of a rebuild. And you know what? You know what makes me mad? He was castrating the front office this year about getting him a team, and I want decisions. I want to make this. I want to do that. And now he wants to say, I don't want to be a part of a rebuild. You know what, dude? You play better. You sucked. You were terrible in that game, and you cost your team. And to see him go on Pat McAfee again today and say, "Oh well, the loss stings. I blame a lot on myself, but special teams is bad." This guy sucks, man. I really, he's such a I just can't stand watching a guy go out there and just dictate what he wants to do. I know he's great, and I know he should have the right of where he wants to choose. But for once in my life, I still call the Packers fans spoiled. And if any of you are Packer fans watching in and you guys are calling for him to leave, it's pretty spoiled of you to do that because you're going to be bad without him. You're going to be real bad without him. Like, he's the only guy that makes that team go. But for crying out loud, like, I'm kind of with you guys now. Like, I don't like this guy. Just, I don't know. Even listening to him talk post game, he's something else.
You know,
He really is.
the funny thing about it is, like, coming into this season, I had a lot of respect for Aaron Rodgers. The way I thought he was very well-spoken, very thoughtful. Nothing he said was without true intent, right? It was everything he said had a reason. And usually, like, whatever he had to say was entertaining, quite frankly, and knowledgeable. But this year it's been a little bit just, I mean, obviously, like, the whole, like, oh, I've been immunized, and, like, passing it off as if he's been vaccinated, and just all of that. That first of all, that's just bad, right? And then everything else that has just kind of happened this year, like me against the world, I'm being canceled, and, you know, whatever. By the way, I thought it was hilarious where someone else said Aaron Rodgers was Aaron Rodgers' postseason run was canceled by snowflakes.
Yeah, I saw that too. Did you see they're calling him Throw Rogan on Twitter?
Oh man,
Throw Rogan, Aaron
Fraudgers was
Fraudgers.
some of the best I've ever seen of a single player, and he had it coming all the way because he could have easily just kept his mouth shut, continued to play great football, and nobody would have said a word about him. But you know, he kept opening his mouth on issues that were highly controversial, and a lot of his, you know, statements, a lot of people don't like because they feel it's dangerous in a lot of aspects because of the whole medical thing. So, you know, it's amazing how he torpedoed his good standing with a lot of, you know, the wider public in the space of just one season.
Seriously.
So the fact that so many celebrated his downfall in that game against the 49ers really wasn't that shocking, and it was extra special for us Bears fans.
You know, kudos to the Green Bay Packers organization for holding their ground this offseason too. Can you imagine if they would have fired Brian Gutekunst and Rodgers like plays this year? And let's say because we're going to hear from him in the next 2 weeks if he's going to play next year. He said he's going to make a decision in the next 2 weeks, and he's going to announce it on the Pat McAfee show on a Tuesday afternoon about what he's doing next. If he's going to enter free agency or if he's going to retire. And he's not going to come out of retirement if he does. That was the key taking point today on that show. But listen, kudos to the Green Bay Packers, who are run exceptionally well, for not firing Brian Gutekunst, who has done a fantastic, phenomenal job as their general manager. If they would have fired him, their organization takes 5 steps back, and then you still have this first-round playoff loss because your quarterback can't show up to work and play in a playoff game like he's done so many times over the last few years. I mean, it's really a shame. I, for one, find it hilarious, but for those fans and putting myself in those shoes, that sucks. You know?
Yeah.
That blows. But, you know, calling for him to leave, man, y'all have no idea the other side of that fence. You guys can be terrible without him. So.
Yeah. And you know, the interesting thing is, like, we've talked about the Bears rebuild and, like, what's going to be the scene with their team building and coach and Justin Fields' development. If Aaron Rodgers is gone, don't get me wrong, the Packers have a very, very good roster outside of Aaron Rodgers. I know there's a lot of, he doesn't have weapons. I think that's bullshit. I think he absolutely has weapons. You know, he has excellent defense, which has gotten finally a little bit more due this year because of all the good work that they did. Good running game, everything. Offensive line obviously is elite. They have a very good roster, very good coach in Matt LaFleur. Jordan Love is their quarterback. I mean,
yeah.
I mean, he may actively, assuming he continues to be as bad as we think and know he is, he may actively bring down an excellent roster. And this division is wide open. The Vikings are kind of starting over their team direction with their, you know, brand new front office. The Lions are the Lions, and who knows what's going to happen with them. Maybe Dan Campbell is doing a good job there in year 2. We'll see, but they still have Jared Goff as their quarterback. Like, this division is open. So if the Bears are able to just you know, it's
build
there.
An offense. They got to build an offense.
Yeah, they got to build an offense. Like, it's there. Like, they can easily run this division for the next 10 years if Justin Fields takes that next step.
The defense is still good enough to be at least a top 15 defense. If you can produce an also top 15 offense with Justin Fields taking a step, there's no reason to think this conference will hold them back from making the playoffs. Not with, the possibility of Rodgers leaving Green Bay and maybe even Brady retiring. That creates a big time vacuum for some other teams to really get into the mix.
And that third wild card, just last thing, Kevin, that last third wild card spot was always kind of attainable, right? I mean, they had a rough year this year, but they were always going to be in that mix for that third, maybe even second wild card spot, assuming Fields takes that leap. If they can win their division because it's open, you get a home playoff game. That's imagine the swing of fortune, because you may have gotten in as a wild card and now you have to go on the road in your first game. Here you get to host a home playoff game because you won your division, because it happens to be weak enough because Aaron Rodgers is gone. We're talking about an entirely different scenario from the Bears standing in the NFL just by this possible news.
Look at year 1 to year 2 of Joe Burrow. Look at that division. That's a really hard division to win. The Steelers had a great team and a great coach this year. Quarterback struggled, obviously, and then they get the reigning MVP. 2 years ago MVP, Lamar Jackson, and they struggled. I know they had their injuries, but guess what? If you look at the way Joe Burrow year 1 to year 2, why can't Justin do that too? Go out and draft him a receiver. Go out and get him a wide receiver. Look at that offense that they built. You're telling me, I know Joe Mixon's great. David Montgomery's better than Joe Mixon, I would say. But they have 3-star wide receivers. Their offensive line is terrible, though. This is the thing. Use that blueprint of how the Bengals got and propelled that team. If they can just develop a quarterback, that's literally half the battle. They went out, won the division. Look at them. They're in the AFC title game. They're going to get their doors blown off probably, but who cares? They made it there, and they're going to have a long stretch of making it there. Yes. Yeah. Use that blueprint. Exactly. And I just think that with where
they're basically playing with house money at this point. Nobody expected them to get this far.
No. Yeah. I mean, why? And that's going to be the same with the Bears next year. There's no reason why they can't do the same thing if you follow that blueprint and give him some weapons to throw to. I mean, it made a world of difference. Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. I mean, it made a world of difference on that offense this year. And Bears, I'm positive the Bears can do the same. Let's love a little bit more on the Packers here. Robbie Gould kicks the game-winning field goal. Jimmy Garoppolo's from Arlington Heights, the town away from me. And you hear the little childhood Bear fan come out in Jimmy Garoppolo right here.
Man, that feels good. Man, so fucking legend, man. Fuck the Packers.
It's so good. Yeah.
So good.
You hear it come out of him. You love that. Got to be happy.
The childhood Bears fan that's always been wanting to say that. Fuck the Packers.
And George Kittle, too. You remember George Kittle last year? Oh, man, I'm really happy we helped get the Bears in the playoffs. I always liked the Bears. Stop Bears. And then he walks off the podium. Man, I fucking love the Bears. I love that. I got to help.
He's one of my favorites, man. He's also a Stone Cold Steve Austin fan who I was a huge mark for back in the day. So, George Kittle's awesome. Everything about him's great.
Just gotta love Robbie Gould. I mean, he's never missed a kick in the playoffs. Is he a Hall of Famer, guys? I think he is. Yeah. I'm putting him in there.
You have to be. I mean,
he can win a Super Bowl. I would say absolutely. Right now, I think he's kind of borderline. I think he's not where Adam Vinatieri is.
Right.
He's getting to a point where he's been around long enough to where you can start having that conversation. But I think he needs a ring in order to solidify it.
How many kickers are in the Hall of Fame?
2 right now. I think it's Jan Stenerud, that old guy from the AFL and the Chiefs, and then Morton Anderson. Is the other one. Okay. Vinatieri's going to go in. I think we all know that. So that's going to be number 3. And then probably Justin Tucker once he wraps it up. And I just did a quick you can start talking about Robbie and, guys like that.
Sure.
Morton Anderson, Lou Groza.
Oh, there you
go. George Blanda.
He was kind of a hybrid kicker quarterback.
Yeah. And then there's a couple same hybrids. Don Hudson with the Backers, Jerry Kramer.
Right, yeah.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I may have my gold-colored glasses on just because, we'll find out about Devin Hester in 2 weeks here, whether he makes Hall of Fame, and I think he's getting in. And I remember tweeting this out after the game. I was like, I think that both those guys should be in. But you're right. I think he needs that Super Bowl ring. I don't think they're getting it. Nobody. I said, and I'll continue my statement on it. I still think the Rams are the most complete team in the playoffs. I said that last week, and I still believe it. They're still whole and playing great. But man, ain't nobody beating this Chiefs team. Not happening. They are on.
They flipped
a
the switch,
roll.
and you can tell. You
Yeah.
know, the offense can't be stopped. The defense is playing well enough. They look like their 2019 version at this point.
And quite honestly, like a 49ers team with basically mostly just Deebo Samuel was able to run roughshod through that Rams defense. I mean, what is Tyreek Hill going to do? What is Travis Kelce going to do? Like, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Like, these guys are going to destroy the Rams defense, which honestly
McKinnon's been great too.
Jerick McKinnon's been really good. Mecole Hardman we already talked about. So like
Pringle, the guy, you know, he can pop up from time to time. They got so many freaking weapons.
So many weapons, so much speed. And for a Rams team that really only has a pass rush, that's all they have on their defense. And obviously Aaron Donald, like, you know, kind of like far removed from that. That's it. Like, their secondary, I'm not impressed with. Jalen Ramsey clearly can be. If he got toasted by Mike Evans, he's going to get destroyed by Tyreek Hill. Like,
I mean, I'll tell you one thing. They really miss John Johnson, the safety that they lost. I mean, I said it at the time that they're probably going to end up missing him more than people think because he's a really good player and he never got the credit because that defense is stacked with guys like Ramsey and Donald and the like. So, you know, I think he's been a big loss, which is why they probably added Weddle, who I think's actually been a big help to them despite his age.
For sure. And like, I don't know how much he's able to compensate against that Chiefs offense. So, to your point, Kevin, I do think the Rams have the most balance from a completeness standpoint. The Chiefs, though, I mean, it'll be interesting. Like, by the way, speaking of the Chiefs, I do want a quick shout out meaning rest in peace to that playoff run for Josh Allen because oh my God, he was absolutely remarkable. And he doesn't get to move on. Like, it's
9 touchdowns in 2 games. Just he was on another level.
Honestly, just it's sad. It's sad. So
yeah,
just brutal. I mean,
he'll be back.
That's the thing. I feel bad for him, but I know he's going to be back, and I know he's going to get a ring at some point with that team. I know it. The Bills are so dang talented.
Right. I think if they upgrade their defense a little bit, improve their pass rush, which was a problem against the Chiefs, you know, I think they're definitely going to be in the conversation once again next year.
Yeah, and that's the thing is I do feel bad for them absolutely because anytime you get that close, you work all year to have a really good team and people are picking you. I picked the Bills to win the AFC this year. I thought they will, but man, it just goes to show all of us that. We were talking about 2 guys during the regular season who may be, oh, geez, are they not as good as we thought they were? And those guys were Kyle Shanahan and Patrick Mahomes. And when push comes to shove and when playoff football comes around, it goes to show you who the fuck is boss. I mean, Kyle Shanahan has been fantastic, and Patrick Mahomes is heads and shoulders above any other quarterback in this league. And we saw that on Sunday. It doesn't matter. I know people be like, oh, the overtime rules. Play better defense, man. I'm sorry. Play better defense. I like the college overtime rules. I wouldn't be mad if they moved to it, but you know what?
The whole execution of the Bills defense late in that game was just atrocious.
It was horrible.
Terrible.
Yeah, it was bad. So shout out Pat, man. I love Pat Mahomes, and I hope he gets another ring.
And can we spend a second on the overtime rules? I'm seeing so much. Change the overtime rules.
Yeah,
I
me
hope
too.
Josh Allen. Now, look, this is the NFL. Like. The defense, I mean, if they went ahead and said, no, both offenses are guaranteed a possession, you are basically saying that it is very much a coin flip as to whether or not a defense will be able to make the stop. You are essentially devaluing defense at that point. We're basically, oh, no, don't worry about what you do. Your offense will still get a chance to save you. Fuck off, man. It's the NFL. Like, make a stop. You know, like you are. Why are you on the field if you're gonna have the chance to be bailed out? And if both offenses score, then why is it sudden death? Then what about like, oh, touchdown? What about the other offense? Like, oh, what if we get a chance to answer it? It's never gonna end. So, yeah, play defense. To Kevin's point, play defense and earn that stop.
And it's not. I'm not a college football fan, but the way they do overtime is fine. So if the NFL wanted to go to that, I wouldn't be mad at it. Every team starts, I believe it's the 25-yard line. and you go to whoever doesn't score a touchdown. That way, both guys get to touch the ball, and that would almost value defense more. So I'm cool with that. But don't come at me and say that the current rules suck because, I get that they could be better, but they don't suck. Play better defense. Guy has to go the length of the field, and Mahomes was quite frankly, I mean, we saw Travis Kelce depicting what to do on that sideline in that video that went viral. He's basically calling the plays. I mean, it's not. Those were not hard plays. If your tight end is calling them, you don't even need a coach to do it. That means your defense is struggling, and you got to get it together. And I think that goes to show why Leslie Frazier won't be the Bears head coach. So thank God.
He might be the Giants coach.
Yeah, the Giants are apparently they let Brian Daboll leave, and
Yeah.
they're going to interview Leslie. Why?
I don't know.
Well,
New
they're going to
fan,
interview Leslie again, but there's behind the scenes belief that they're kind of really starting to drift towards Brian Flores,
Interesting.
which doesn't surprise me. He's a Brooklyn kid. He's got those deep roots in the New York area, and plus they have the ammunition, if they wish, to go get Deshaun Watson, which is the rumor going around that he and Flores really would like to get together. So if you really want to make a splash, that would be a way to do it. Get Flores, and then he goes and gets Watson.
I see a comment here. Why isn't Raheem Morris getting looks? Injured on the first play of the season, wasn't playing at all this year. But guess what? Because Kyle Shanahan's a mastermind. He can make any running back work. He can make me work on that.
Dude, Raheem Morris is the defensive coordinator of the Rams.
Oh, sorry. I meant Mostert. My fault.
There you go.
Raheem, yeah, you're right.
He has been bad.
Didn't they interview him? No, not the Bears, but didn't he get an interview with?
I think it was with the Vikings.
Yeah, it may have been with the Vikings, but
I'd rather interview D'Amico Ryans if I'm being perfectly honest.
No, exactly. No, 100%. And again,
they had a ton of injuries this year too. So I don't know, it might be worth an interview.
Sure. I actually like Raheem Morris. I think he did a pretty decent job in Tampa Bay, considering the roster he was given and the quarterback, Josh Freeman, he was given. So I thought he did a good job there. I thought he did a good job interim for the Falcons, sort of got them back at least on a stable footing, considering the free fall they were in. So he can coach. It's just, unfortunately, I don't think the defense for the Rams has been good enough this year to really propel him high enough to really get those looks. Whereas D'Amico Ryans, I think people might think that he's a first-year coordinator, so it might be a little too soon for him to get those looks. But man, what he's done with that defense this year, especially against some really good offensive teams, I'd still give him a look.
What was fascinating to me is how little, if any, interviews Greg Roman's gotten.
Something is going on with him. Maybe previous interviews just haven't gone really well for him, because you'd think after all the success he's had in San Francisco, in Buffalo, and now in Baltimore, somebody would have hired him by now. So maybe he just doesn't interview well and hasn't made the best impressions.
It's very possible. It's fascinating because he's been a hot rumored candidate for a long time. So I mean, if he's not interviewing well, and sometimes some people's ceiling happens to be coordinator, and that's fine. It's not a big deal, but it's just one of those things that's very interesting. Very, very successful on offense. Has really good schemes, has tailored it well to different types of quarterbacks. I thought there would be some activity, but I don't think I've seen a single interview.
So do we love the overtime rules or do we hate them? I'm cool with them. I don't think they, if they want to go to the college rule, I'm cool with that. But I think that they almost do it for the health aspect of things, where
Probably
you want to get guys in and out. You don't want to make them play a whole quarter like they did before. So love them or hate them. Where are we at on this?
I'm perfectly fine with the rules. I understand people can often be a prisoner of the moment. They just watched one of the greatest, games of all time in playoff history, and they didn't get a chance to see Josh Allen come out and answer Patrick Mahomes as he had been doing the entire game. So in that aspect, I understand. But at the end of the day, it's a team game, and Buffalo's defense had a responsibility to somehow get a stop, and they didn't. So, at the end of the day, the rules are fine, and Buffalo just didn't play well enough.
Eric or Drew?
Sorry, I could get off mute. Honestly, I'm okay with the rules. Like we were talking about before, play defense. And maybe there is something to be said about the order in which the teams get it. Like maybe a coin flip at the time of overtime, because, sometimes there's when did the last team score? What was the kind of health level from a rest perspective, of the team? So a coin flip at that moment may be a little bit more decisive than it should be. Maybe it's one of those things where in the playoffs, for example, the home team who worked and has the advantage for a reason, whether a division winner or higher seed, they get their choice first because you happen to be the home team. In the regular season, I don't really care, but in the playoffs, home team gets the choice, and that would make a little bit more sense than just like coin flip, because circumstance of the game, how you got to overtime, all that kind of stuff. Like a team that just gave up the score in the final seconds, like Buffalo did, they are reeling, and all of a sudden it's like, hey, it's overtime. Like, yeah, it's a new game, but it's really not. You are shell shocked from having given up the field goal in 13 seconds. So it's just one of those things that's very fascinating. And if Josh Allen had gotten the ball first, who knows what happens? So I think there should be a little.
He said it. He said if he got the ball, they'd be celebrating. That's
exactly. True. 100%.
Because the Chiefs couldn't stop him either. So it really did feel like it came down to the coin flip. And sometimes bad luck just goes your way.
Exactly. So I think the tweak on order in which you get the ball, because if there's a level of certainty that we know that, hey, we're getting the ball immediately or not, then it may impact how you play. So I think that would be helpful. But as far as, first team either scores a touchdown or a defensive score and that ends the game right away, otherwise, eventually each team will get the ball. I think those rules are fine, frankly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and if they want to go to college, I'm cool with that too. Both teams touch the ball, then 25-yard line, not playing a whole quarter, but that can get long too. And at that point, if it, you have certain games like the Illinois-Penn State game this year that went to about 8 or 9 overtimes. At that point, you're better off just playing a whole quarter of football. So, and I know hockey does that too. They do away with shootouts at the end or in the playoffs. They go back to just regular overtime and things like that. So I think there's a lot to be said I'm sure it'll get looked at and talked about, but I think the way they have it is, honestly fine. I don't have a problem with it either. And, I'll be completely retracting my statement should the Bears fall into this hole next year in the playoffs. And, I'll be completely retracting that statement. But as of now, no problem with it on my end. So take your questions here on the Club Dub podcast. We are presented by sportsmockery.com. We're talking Ryan Poles, the Bears' new general manager, comes over from the Chiefs. He was there over 12 or 13 years, spent his entire post-college life in that organization, worked his way through a lot of ranks, a lot of general managers who are doing great right now, a couple of which who are going for a Super Bowl title, John Lynch and Chiefs GM right now. The name slipped my mind, but
Veach.
What is that?
Brett Veach.
Yeah, you're right. So, okay. So we're talking about polls. We're talking about who he's going to name as the head coach. Honestly, I'm not sure. I'm going to go Flores. That's my guess, but we want to take your questions. See a couple in here about the head coach, so that's where we're going to start. This is kind of a question. So Payton and Harbaugh are off the table for head coach. So obviously we heard today Sean Payton stepping away from coaching. He's going to be back. He basically just said, I need a year to think about it, a.k.a. I don't want to work with Taysom Hill and Trevor Siemian and this garbage I have on offense at quarterback. Ian Book. Yeah. So he'll take a year off. He's going to go get a lot of money from Fox or some cable network to pay him because he's very smart.
Or Amazon.
Yeah, Amazon too, right. Harbaugh, I don't think, everybody thought that was maybe an option, but, both these guys are off the list. It's not going to happen.
I think the thing with Harbaugh is he just wants too much control and too much money. It's really that simple. It's a bottom line league, and, the rumor is he demanded a little too much money that the Bears were willing to pay, and I'm willing to guess that he also wanted significant say in the roster, which, the Bears have never done, or they've done once, but they only did it for a year. So it's never been part of their process. So I'm not surprised that he ended up not being one of their top guys.
What's wrong with Bienemy from Save Us Polls? I wonder if this is Matt Nagy, the Matt Nagy Twitter account at us again. Maybe if it's somebody new, but Save Us Polls. Welcome to the chat. If you're just this is your first time on the show, I don't know if you've watched before, but nothing.
Well, there are a few things.
There's some things reported.
I should give him a shot.
There's a belief he doesn't interview well, which is the first problem. Second problem is he has a bit of a off the field issue history that goes back a long ways. So that's something you can't ignore.
Colorado.
I've never even heard of that.
Yeah. Something like that. Yeah. And then
I've heard the interview thing, but not what's the off the field thing.
I can't remember. It was some domestic interview sort of thing,
Okay.
and it was kind of ugly. You know, it's been a long time, and you obviously don't want to hold that against the guy forever, but it's still a problem when the guy's going to be the face of your franchise. And then the third thing is it's the same Matt Nagy situation. He doesn't call plays on the offense. That's Andy Reid. So that's a trifecta of problems that you would have from the Bears' perspective. I wouldn't be surprised if they still give him an interview, but I probably don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, we'll know for sure if he's – this is the thing with Ryan Poles now firmly in the Bears chair. He, of all people, would be the one to give Bieniemy an interview, right?
And if he doesn't, that speaks volumes.
Exactly my point. So maybe this could be kind of maybe he's doing him a career favor. We'll see. But, yeah, no, I don't think there's anything wrong with looking at Bieniemy. I mean, I just don't think he's going to get the job. That's why I said I don't think there's anything. I think you give him an interview and you see, but – the guys that they have in line right now, it's going to be one of those four. It's going to be Flores, it's going to be Daboll, it's going to be Caldwell, it's going to be Dan Quinn. It's going to be one of those four. Let's see here. We got a fire Eric Lambert in the chat from Dom Salvo. Interesting.
Sorry, Don. I don't think that's happening.
Sorry, Dom.
Did Ryan leave any advice for new Ryan? God, let's hope not. Unless it's about cornerbacks and
running backs.
Yeah, corners and runners.
Linemen. There you go. Yeah, you got it.
If you have Ryan Pace scouting defensive line, and you have Ryan Poles scouting
offensive line.
Yeah, you're in the trenches there.
This is interesting here from Ross. Does Daboll not getting an offer from New York today give the Bears an opportunity? I think every day the Bears have an opportunity to make now that they have Ryan Poles, every day moving forward, they have an opportunity to go out and interview a guy.
I mean, the fact that he left the building at all says a lot about, where the Giants are in terms of him being the slam dunk guy. It doesn't appear that's the case.
Right. Yeah. And quite honestly,
you guys want Daboll, right? You guys are Daboll guys at this moment in time?
In terms of what he can do for Justin, absolutely. But, I think a lot of people might have questions about his personality and, his leadership qualities. He comes across as kind of bland, which, that hasn't stopped guys from being great head coaches. But, you always like to look for a guy who sort of exudes that charisma that a head coach usually has. So you can't hold that against him considering the success he's had. But still, it always depends on who's doing the hiring. And unfortunately, right now, it doesn't look like New York's all in on him just yet.
Does Kyle Shanahan have a brother or something? Or a clone? Can we just get Kyle Shanahan?
Some would argue Mike McDaniel is as close as you're going to get.
I was just gonna say. So we have comments about Mike McDaniel and ties to Dan Quinn and things like this. So, but again, I
really wish the 49ers hadn't promoted him to offensive coordinator, because that would have given Quinn an in to say, hey, I'll make you the offensive coordinator here if you come with me. So, I don't think he'll take a lateral move. It's either going to be a head coach or he's going to stay with Shanny.
And he's been with Shanahan forever. This is not a one time. Yeah, he would definitely stay.
So let's see. What about Rodgers? I guess this is a good question. Is he going somewhere? Is he staying, or is he retiring? What do we think?
I think he's going to go somewhere else, or he's going to stay in Green Bay. I don't think he's going to retire. I don't think he's there yet. But, I believe it's probably either he's going to go to Denver or he's going to stay in Green Bay, and they're going to try and make it work for another year.
And this is what's interesting is it's been 2 years now with Jordan Love.
2 full seasons.
2 full seasons. Yes. And so if they bring Rodgers back next year, that'll be 3 years with Rodgers. And people can say Aaron Rodgers was a first-round pick, and they had, 3 years. He sat behind Brett Favre.
Contracts were different back then.
Contracts were very different back then.
Salary, they were 6-year deals, not 4-year deals. So that's significant.
It's absolutely significant. And Aaron Rodgers, by all accounts, was an ascending player, was showing well. Jordan Love, by all accounts, sucks. And from the tape, sucks. So very different thing. And I mean, everyone is outspoken, we'd love Rodgers back. And they would not be saying that if they were comfortable with Jordan Love taking over the franchise. So very interesting stuff happening in Green Bay. I imagine Gutekunst, LaFleur, whoever the offensive coordinator happens to be after Nathaniel Hackett, I think takes over Denver. Is that what seems to be happening? So
that's the growing rumor. It's not quite there yet. Albright doesn't seem totally convinced that he's the choice yet, but That's the way it seems to be trending. I think probably Luke Getsy is his name, would probably take over for him as offensive coordinator if that's the case.
Sure, and I'm sure they're going to be planning a lot of time trying to convince Rodgers to stay. It'll be fascinating. But to Eric's point, I think Denver is probably the clear destination in case they do get rid of him, or he wants to go somewhere else. I don't see another clear opportunity where a team would not be rebuilding. Like Denver is ready to win if they have a quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
They have a very good roster. Yeah. But who else?
Keep hearing Pittsburgh. Him and Mike Tomlin have a thing.
You could make a case there. They need to rebuild their offensive line. It's kind of a mess.
Yeah,
but they've got receivers, they've got a defense. Although their defensive coordinator just retired, so they'll have to replace him. But they still got a good roster, as they usually do. So yeah, if you get a quarterback that can actually move and do things that Ben obviously can't anymore, I think they can be right back in the mix. Weren't they 12-4 last year? So they're still a good team.
Who?
Steelers.
Yeah, I believe they were 12-4. Yeah, they started out 10-0, and yeah,
right. Yeah.
So or 11-0, I think actually. So yeah, I think he's going where this guy goes. I think he's going where Devontae goes. And I had to throw this out here. Last dance, my ass. Nice. That was so funny at the beginning of the year. But I think he's going where Devontae goes. Devontae's a free agent. He's going to eventually become the highest paid receiver in the NFL if the Packers choose to not tag him, if they choose to not go the Allen Robinson route. But listen, I mean, they got a lot of questions to make. I don't think you keep one without the other. Maybe you want to keep him for Jordan Love, but I don't think Devontae would want to do. I think they both are going to end up, they're a package deal. And this is as a Bears fan, you need to pay close attention to who does what, because I don't think one is staying without the other. Unless the Packers were to be like, nah, we're going to franchise tag you and you're going to stick around, which they can very well do. I think they will
do that, to be perfectly frank, because losing both of those guys would be catastrophic. Rodgers is bad enough, but then losing the best wide receiver in the league on top of that, I think they'd franchise him and just hope that he can help Jordan Love, ascend from where he is right now.
Yeah, it could very well be that. But I could see. I think Rodgers. I think he stays or he retires. I think it'll be one of those two. I don't see him playing for a different team. Maybe they could work something out, but trying to tell a team to give you 2 or 3 first-round picks for a 38-year-old quarterback with an attitude problem and has struggled in the playoffs. And he struggled in the playoffs the last couple of years. I mean, I don't know, man. I don't know. I don't know. It's a good question. We love those questions coming in here on the Club Dub podcast. We got a lot of them coming in. Bears defensive coordinator. This is a good one. Bears defensive coordinator options.
Sean Desai
or Vic Fangio.
I mean, there's a lot of very good options out there, but it will depend on who they hire as the head coach. So,
I mean, we haven't. I think we just heard that we heard that Desai had an interview over in Seattle.
Mm-hmm.
Don't really know if that's going to go anywhere, but right now Desai is fine where he hasn't gone anywhere. He's still with the Bears. Obviously, he'd love to have Vic Fangio back. I don't think anybody would hate that. I think he gets along really well with this current group of guys. He would be my choice. But again, we're going to start to see these dominoes fall after a while. But I think look at those three. Look at Sean Desai. You look at Mike Zimmer. You look at Vic Fangio. I think all three of those guys will be mentioned.
Who did the Panthers end up hiring as OC?
Ben McAdoo.
Yeah, McAdoo.
Right. That's right. Why?
Yeah, Joe Brady could,
because they had no legitimate options who probably wanted to go there.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, what's their quarterback
you hear
situation?
That? It's called scraping the bottom of the barrel.
Yeah, their quarterback situation. How many more years of Sam Darnold do they have? 2? 3?
God. I think one. One more?
No, I think it's 2. I think it's at least 2.
Good Lord.
And it's a lot of money, but I don't know. Anyway, a lot of good questions rolling in here. What if Bears hire Jim Caldwell and fire him next year to get Sean Payton as a stopgap coach?
I wouldn't hate it, but
I wouldn't hate it from we'll get to see Sean Payton in Chicago in 2 years standpoint. I would hate it from if Justin Fields is your franchise quarterback, putting him through that would be terrible for him standpoint. And I don't think the Bears can afford that. I think this next hire has to be made with the idea that, look, Fields is our guy and this is going to grow with this head coach, or he won't. and he'll flame out. So if they hire Caldwell, they better hope it's because they think Caldwell and Caldwell's regime can get Fields to the place where he needs to be and the Bears to the place where he needs to be. I can't imagine a stopgap measure here, just because of the
kind of a classless move. George, say what you want about George McCaskey, and he's
that's
not
the way the
guy.
McCaskies operate.
No,
not.
So not going to happen. As much as I want Sean Payton, I believe me, I would run naked laps around the city of Chicago for Sean Payton. Like I would love to have him as our head coach, but it's just not a reality. And unfortunately, I keep hearing people like, Cowboys, because everyone thinks Mike McCarthy's going to get fired for good reason. Mike's as good as gone. He'll take that Dallas job and get a bag down there. We'll end on this one. The question that everyone wants to know is this the beginning of the team turning it around?
We won't know for a while yet, but I will say that you can usually tell if you look at the track record, a GM's success can usually be told by the quality of the head coach he hires and also his first draft pick. Now, it's unique for him because he doesn't have a first rounder, so judging him on a second round pick as his first pick would probably be unfair, so we might have to wait until 2023 to get an idea of how good he might be at this. But those are usually two telltale signs of whether or not a GM is pretty good at what he does or will be pretty good at what he does. Because when you look at Pace, John Fox was the hire and Kevin White was his first pick.
Hey, when he manipulates the rest of the league to let Chris Olave drop to 39th pick, that'll be just amazing.
Hey, man,
Jameson
I am all for it.
What was that, Kevin?
Jameson Williams.
Yeah, honestly, that one is actually realistic because he tore his ACL, didn't he?
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, I'd still draft him.
Every year is pretty much a solid wide receiver class because it's a loaded position. But this year feels like it's going to have some really solid options there in the second round if that's where they decide to go.
Yep.
We will certainly see. Great questions, guys. Great turnout tonight. It's an exciting day. If you feel yourself as an excited Bears fan, you should be. This is it's change. It's something new. A new GM after 7 years and no playoff victories. It's a good feeling, and you're allowed to feel good about it. But we need to honestly recognize that this guy's never been a general manager before. There's going to be growing pains with it. It's not always going to be perfect, and it's going to take some time. And chances are he's going to be around for a little bit, and we'll see who he chooses as head coach. I think he's got the connections. We just got the tweet from the Bears about 20 minutes ago that he officially completed that interview with Jim Caldwell. So that's the first one down. Listen, we can be happy, but the results are going to come in the NFL draft and free agency. I think that's where we're going to get our first taste of how he can handle a roster, because this roster needs a lot of retooling. They got to get a lot younger. They need to make some trades, and quite frankly, they need to just keep loading up on offense. And I think we'll see.
I'm really curious to see what Poles does in terms of his draft currency. He's only got 5 picks, no first rounder. I'm wondering if he's going to try and find ways to really build his stockpile going into this draft. So we might be seeing some moves this offseason in terms of him finding ways to even get some mid to late round picks. So this should be a fun one.
Yeah, and we've talked about Khalil Mack. We've talked about Robert Quinn as possibilities, selling while value is at an all-time high. Maybe Cody Whitehair. Maybe one of the, maybe someone, honestly, if it doesn't fit his vision, maybe someone like Cole Kmet. You don't know what his vision.
Wouldn't get much for him, but
the point is hey, I want as many swings at this in my vision and my scouting and my grades and my, the way I envision this team and what I prioritize. That's what I want to do. So I want to get rid of all these players that I feel are excess fat. I think that's what you call it.
Trim the fat.
Yep. I mean, all we can really say is the only guy who's probably safe is Justin Fields. Everyone else you can consider fair game for one reason or another, especially when a new GM takes over.
Mooney would be safe too. I think Mooney is safe too. But you're right.
Probably, but you just don't know.
I would say honestly, the only 2 players that are probably Justin Fields at this point, almost entirely certainly to be safe. Even someone like Roquan Smith, who is now looking for a new contract,
maybe a first rounder.
Hey, you know what? Let's go get a first rounder for Roquan Smith and start this over. You never know. So it is going to be fascinating. I mean, I'm very intrigued because Poles' reputation seems to be extremely high based on whatever the work he's done in Kansas City. We already talked about he has a lot of different he has experience with a lot of different other perspectives that have helped build his vision of how to build a team, which is huge. Now let's just want to see it in action.
One last thing I want to mention about Dan Quinn, who's going to get his second interview here this week. What if Dan Quinn becomes the head coach of the Bears and is able to get his old friend Calvin Ridley up to Chicago?
That'd be wild.
Two worked really well together. He's mentioned in trade talks he clearly took time off because he needed a break from the league, and I don't think he's very happy in Atlanta. That just another little nugget to watch, just another little thing to keep your eye on. So
hey, if the Bears offered their second-round pick and Atlanta would take it, I think it's worth the risk because Ridley's a great wide receiver, and pairing him with Darnell Mooney would be a great 1-2 punch. I don't think it's going to happen because I think it's going to require more than that to get Ridley.
It would be more, yeah.
But it's definitely something to at least explore. So
yeah, just a little nugget I was thinking about. But we got a final take, guys. Who wants a final take tonight? I know we didn't discuss.
I'll do it.
You got a final take? Dang. All right. Drew's got the final take tonight. Take it away, my friend.
All right. It's about my guy, Matthew Stafford. Look, Twitter has been all about the jokes. Stat Padford, Meltdown Stafford, all this kind of bullshit that I've been watching all season. Oh, the Rams traded first-round picks for this guy. Was he really an upgrade over Jared Goff? We saw this past Sunday why the Rams made that trade. We saw vindication for the guy who had never won a playoff game in Detroit. Why there was so much like, can he really get it done? Yeah, he got it done. He beat Tom Brady in his own building. Guys, look, just put some respect on the guy's name. He has always been an excellent quarterback, always been one of those guys, very, very underappreciated, elevated a lot of garbage in Detroit for a long time. But at the end of the day, there is a ceiling as to how far it can go. Not everybody is Tom Brady, okay? And there's a reason Tom Brady is the greatest of all time. Stafford did a lot in Detroit. I'm very happy that Shanahan recognized that and made the trade. And now we're seeing this guy is in the NFC title game. And he was the catalyst to get them there. So, look, I'm very happy for him. I feel like it's vindication for him. He's had a long, tough career. Obviously, playing in Detroit, that sucks. That's a Bears fan joke, but also, just in general. Career, it's tough for a guy like that who has spent 13 years in Detroit. What happened with his wife and the illness that she was going through and getting treated. It's been a tough several years for Stafford. Good to see him rewrite his legacy a little bit, beating Brady in his own building, going to the NFC title game. Look, it's just, I'm happy to see it. I'm glad that, Lions fans who always knew that Stafford was always a good quarterback saw some vindication of it as well. And as me personally, as someone who has always been a fan of Stafford and hated to see some of the bullshit on Twitter about, he's like one of those like guys that melts down in big moments. Not the case. Good for him. Very happy for him. Go win the whole fucking thing.
There you have it, Matt Stafford. We said at the beginning of the year, we said that as soon as the Rams went and got this guy, they were for real, and I immediately picked them as my Super Bowl team, and I'm going to stick by that. I have them winning easily. I don't know if they play Saturday or Sunday, but this weekend I have them winning pretty easily, and I'm going to have them in the Super Bowl. Now, I might backtrack and take the Chiefs now, but they're still going to get to the Super Bowl, and they could very well win it. They're still the most complete team in the postseason, so very well said. Good for Matt Stafford. I got nothing against the guy. Nothing against him. He played well against the Bears, was a good quarterback, but nothing against him. Not
12
really
and 8
more against him.
Bears, which is,
what was he?
12-8 now, including this win with the Rams.
Yeah, that week one embarrassment. Yeah.
And actually, I think I was reading this correctly. In games that he has played and started and finished against Tom Brady, I think he has a winning record.
Wow, really?
Yeah, I think he's 3-2 in games that he started and finished against Tom Brady.
Not sure there's many people who can say that.
Right.
For him. Tons of good football this weekend, guys. It's championship weekend, conference championship weekend. It is going to be Chiefs and Bengals, Niners and Rams. So battle of some fun teams. And guess what? No Packers. No one really to root against, which is really, really nice. I honestly, I have no allegiances going into this. I'll take the Rams and I'll take the Chiefs and for my Super Bowl pick in 2 weeks. You guys, any to go on before we head out of here?
I am going to say I'll echo what you said. The 49ers have the Rams number.
You're going to take the Niners. Okay.
But rolling with my guy Stafford. I didn't do a final take on him for nothing.
Okay.
So.
Sure. So Rams, Chiefs?
Rams and Chiefs. Yep.
You too, Eric? Rams, Chiefs?
I have to say the same. I think the Chiefs are just too hot and too well equipped to take down the Bengals. The Bengals have played really well, but I don't think they're going to be able to keep up with Mahomes at this point. And I do think that the way the 49ers are playing such gritty football, they can beat the Rams. But right now, it's the playoffs, and you have to take the better quarterback. And I know what happened in Green Bay sort of goes against that, but I really do believe that the Rams will find a way to get past them this time and, get to the dance.
There you have it. Enjoy Conference Championship Week. Read all about the Bears' new general manager, Ryan Poles, online at sportsmockery.com. Don't forget to check out our guys tomorrow on the Pinwheels and Ivy podcast. Getting closer, hopefully, to some baseball. Been some progressions on both sides. They're going to have stuff to say on both sides of town tomorrow. Pinwheels and Ivy, Zoe, Aldo, and K-Fids got that going for you. We are the Club Dub Podcast, and we're going to leave you on a high note. We'll talk to you next week.
Kick was down the middle and good! 49ers win it! San Francisco is moving on with a 13-10 win here at Lambeau.
Chicago, I'm excited to be here, ready to get to work. Bear down.